It's great to welcome to the program today Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland, former commissioner of the Social Security Administration under the Biden administration. It's really great to have you on. And, a lot has been said about Medicaid vis-a-vis this recent tax bill that has been passed. But I'm interested in digging in a little bit on Social Security with you today. And one of the things, just as a sort of jumping off point, is that the president, President Trump, has said a number of times now, we did no taxes on Social Security. He said this at a number of public appearances. And when I looked at the bill, I didn't see that in there. Do you know what he's talking about when he says that?
Yeah, all during the campaign, and I know this because was talking to people in reception areas and field offices all over the country, including but in swing states, and especially in swing states, Donald Trump's campaign pounded away that Harris wants to tax your Social Security benefits and let illegal immigrants bankrupt the program. So he continues to say he repealed all taxes on Social Security because that was something he was jumping up and down about during the campaign. Kind of fought the Democrats to even on who do you trust the most on Social Security. First time I'm told that by AARP that they've ever seen that happen. So it's my understanding that what the bill does is it creates a deduction for seniors that reduces the numbers of them that will pay any taxes at all. But there is no repeal of a tax on Social Security benefits. As I came to understand it, and so much, David, I learned while I was doing that job from really expert, seasoned, senior executive people.
Yeah.
It is true that we have had, I believe, since 1983, a policy of having a tax, your income tax apply to your Social Security benefits, provided you're at a level where you pay any income tax at all.
Of course.
Many seniors living alone pay no income taxes as a practical matter. However, when you do, those dollars go into the trust fund and back to Social Security. So this bill had the strange effect of reducing the amount of dollars that come into Social Security, but without actually repealing the tax on Social Security benefits, but in a roundabout way, increasing deductions for some seniors so that lowered their tax burden.
I guess it's certainly easier for Trump to just say we repealed taxes on Social Security, because that may be the depth of his understanding of it.
Yeah, and if he's a lead practitioner of the big lie and just saying things over and over and over again. He does have a diabolical genius for simplifying things, even if it's with total falsehoods. So that's a lot of what he's been doing to Social Security with the big lies about illegal immigrants bankrupting the program. When the truth of the matter is, illegal immigrants receive no benefits at all. They're prohibited by law from ever receiving benefits, but they do contribute $26 billion a year to you and to me and to everybody else that's a beneficiary in the program. The other big lie that he constantly told, even dialed up Elon Musk's big lie after it was exposed, is that there's this zombie apocalypse of millions and millions of dead people receiving checks. It's not true. It doesn't happen. There is not a new episode of The Walking Dead with 12 million people, size of the state of Illinois, roaming around our country with, checks spewing out of their cadaverous pockets. It doesn't.
So I wanted to ask you, as someone who would know, what the most likely explanation is for that, because when I heard Elon Musk or whoever say, oh, we found 30,000 people who are over 150 years old, and then these numbers, what I imagine, so often there's some kernel of reality in these claims. And so what I imagined was there are people who would be that old today based on their birth date, but they're not receiving any benefits and they're just listed on some ledger somewhere. I mean, as someone who knows how the system works, is that the most likely explanation, or do you think it was completely fabricated?
Yeah, that's what you just said is true. There are people there. there are people who don't have a death date listed on their record, but that doesn't mean that those people are still receiving checks.
Right.
So they the fact that they haven't even come forward with any, any proof of this, even as much as they said it again and again and again. But what they found was that a lot of people believed it. True story. I went to see an ophthalmologist. I didn't know the gentleman before, but we get old and our wives make us go do things more regularly. And this guy has my chin locked into one of those things, and he's getting the sharp object close to my eye.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, "So, Mayor, what have you been up to lately?" I said, "Well, I had the honor to lead the Social Security Administration." And he said, "Wow, that must have been a real mess with all of those millions and millions of dead people receiving." And so a lot of people did believe it, David. So we laughed, ah, ha, ha, they're so stupid. They don't realize what they're looking at in the database. Maybe that was true. Then again, maybe their own polling says that people believe it when they say it. So it was about a week after Elon Musk had come forward with the great reveal that all of these people were dead and still on Social Security rolls. And when that balloon was bursted by a number of reputable press agencies, then Donald Trump looked out at all of our elected members of Congress and said, actually, they're not 150 years old. Some of them are 300 years old. It was crazy, but a fair number of people have come to believe it. Look, this is what I've come to believe. I know for a fact, and you know this, that Social Security is the only agency that actually maintains a surplus, a huge $2.6 trillion surplus. I think they have their eyes on that money. I think they want it for some other purpose. And they know, given the trust that Americans traditionally have had and their affection for this program and this agency, which keeps so many people from living in poverty, they have to wreck its reputation. And they do that by these falsehoods about waste, fraud, inefficiency being rampant, and they destroy its customer service at the same time.
Right.
And then, after turning enough of us against us, then they have the freedom, if you will, to do what they want to do, which is to go after that trust fund after they wreck the system and precipitate an emergency through their own whacking, hacking, and chainsawing of an already struggling agency.
Right. That's a classic, which is make a system dysfunctional and say, look at how dysfunctional this thing is. We should really get rid of it and maybe privatize it. And as far as the trust fund goes, there's a certain number of levers that you have when it comes to the trust fund and benefits. Of course, one of them would be you reduce benefits. Another one is you increase the retirement age so the monies have more time to grow before benefits are starting to get paid out. You have a limited number of levers. And one of the really interesting things to me is that one of the ways that you can bolster the trust fund is have more working age people paying into the program relative to the number of people that are getting benefits, which with the birth rate declining, as our friend Elon Musk has told us many times, a great way to change that balance of workers to retirees is increase immigration rather than restrict it. But that seems to be something that they're against. And so I guess my question is about this incoherence of they love to say the trust fund is going bankrupt, but at the same time, they oppose a lot of the relatively clear paths to strengthening the very trust fund they attack.
True. The big challenges facing Social Security, I think the most immediate one is the destruction of this agency's ability to operate. I mean, they have paid people with your money and mine to quit. Some of them, if they were retirement eligible, they'd pay them for the entire remainder of this year if they would leave now. But the other thing the other solvable problem, so the customer service thing is a solvable problem.
Yep.
In fact, we had things moving in a much better direction in the final year of the Biden administration, sometime achieving a timeliness of service delivery. If you think of it like a big insurance agency, that was the best they'd done since pre-pandemic, sometimes a 25-year best in the case of the time it took to dispose of ALJ level, administrative law judge appeals. but anyway, back to your question about the other solvable problem is the
Yeah.
long-term ability of the program to pay full benefits. I don't know about you, but I can tell you I don't operate on a 75-year forecast.
Right.
But Social Security does. And within that forecast, yes, as you just pointed out, there are levers. There are assumptions that are made about what the next 75 years will look like. And one of those assumptions has to do with, the ratio of people working to people in active, beneficiary status, retirees, or people on who have caught a disability. Another one has to do with the birth rates, and there is great concern about the birth rates. If you look at the last several trustees reports, and every year they do a trustees report with some pretty decent, not decent, great actuarial work backing up all of those things. But yes, there's two big, so one of the things that we can do that would greatly enhance the long-term 75-year health of the program would be to pass comprehensive immigration reform and allow people who come here to be able to become a part of this great American experience, experiment, contribute to our economy, and those things. But another one that we could do is actually to raise revenues that come into the program. When I first got there, I asked the long-serving actuary, Steve Goss. I said, I get the whole 75-year forecast thing. I said, and the last time we made the adjustment was 1982. I said, what did you all get wrong back in 1982, 83, when Congress was last time up on the, against the deadline of, oh my God, there's going to be a reduction in benefits if we don't act. What did you get wrong in those assumptions? He said two things. One of them was we should have programmed in a recession of a long duration and depth like the one that we went through. We didn't do that. We should have. But that's only about 10% of why we're reading these scary things that say Social Security's trust fund surplus to be depleted in 2033. I said, what was the other one? He said, income inequality. We did not anticipate all of the changes that would happen in the remaining 6 years of the Reagan administration that would push more of the increased earnings in the American economy out of the hands of those who pay Social Security and into the hands of the top 6%. What most of us don't realize, and David, I've been doing town halls. I've been more publicly facing as the ex-commissioner than I was as the actual commissioner. But one of the things most Americans don't think about much, or would have any reason to think about, is that there's actually a cap on the dollars that any person earns against which the Social Security FICA tax applies.
Yeah, 176,000 right now.
Correct. And it goes up every year according to inflation. So if you are a family of four and you are hardworking enough that you're able and fortunate enough to earn $176,000, you pay roughly $10,000 into Social Security.
Right.
If you are a single millionaire who makes 176 million a year, 176 million a year, you still pay the same
amount
that a family making 176,000. And that, my friend, is the biggest cause of and the biggest solution to the scary headlines we see that the surplus reserve is going to be depleted by 2033. And if I can make one other point on that.
Yeah. And then also tell us whether you would uncap it or raise the cap.
Yeah. Well, I once ran for president for a brief minute. I'm sorry I wasn't able to head off what I saw was coming. And in my campaign, I advocated that should be at 200, and that the cap should be raised to 250,000, I believe, or that rather people should start paying in at 250,000. In other words, leave the cap, create a little bit of a donut hole for the next, whatever, 15, 20 years. But when people make more than 250, they should start paying those off. FICA should apply to that.
Yep.
President Biden, it would indicate that 400,000 should be the threshold for that. But whatever it is, this is a solvable problem. The cause of and the solution to it was that the income inequality. But let me say another word about the, very recently, and I love the Washington Post. It's a reputable paper. But when the latest forecast came out, they had a horrible headline. They played right into the trap that gets a lot of clickbait online when you see headlines that say Social Security to go totally bankrupt, totally insolvent. Their headline was Social Security to run totally dry by 2033.
Right.
Not true. What they're talking about, all of those headlines, you talk about the kernel of truth, is that ever since 1983, knowing that the baby boomers, people of my generation, were coming, that big demographic bulge, yep. Social Security had intentionally built up through our payments a surplus reserve so that in these years when the baby boomers are moving through their retirement years and before they reach their eternal reward, we're able to pay the difference between the dollars that go in. So last year, 1.3 trillion was paid in by people working in the economy. 1.4 trillion got paid out. Where did the 100 billion come from? It came from that surplus reserve, that 2.6 trillion dollar reserve. So most of the program is pay as you go. If we come up on the deadline again of 2033 and Congress fails for the first time in the 100-year history of Social Security to act, everybody would get a 17% haircut. But 83% of benefits would continue to be paid because it is a pay-as-you-go program. Another metaphor I might share with you and your viewers and listeners is that if you have a family-owned business and your sister that does your accounting and your books came to you and said, "Hey, big brother, you're going to face a 17% reduction in your in your revenues by 2033," you wouldn't immediately run out, put a banner over the business, and say, "Bankrupt, we're done." You'd make the adjustments, and that's what we need to do with Social Security. It's a solvable problem.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We've been speaking with former governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley, also the former commissioner of the Social Security Administration under the Biden administration. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, David.